Hi, my name is Kari Singwongse. I am a subaward coordinator at the University at Buffalo. The Research Foundation is responsible for monitoring the programmatic and financial activities of its subrecipients in order to ensure proper stewardship of sponsored funds. This is an active fiduciary responsibility. The RF has a 5-step procedure that outlines the minimal requirements for sponsored programs administrators and PIs for monitoring subrecipients. I'm going to talk through what these steps are and highlight the materials linked in the procedure to help you through the process. Let's start. Step 1. Before a subaward is issued to a subrecipient, the campus sponsored programs administrator must work with the PI to determine whether the collaboration is a subaward or a contractor-vendor relationship. There is a link to a decision tree in the RF's subrecipient monitoring and management procedure to help the PI and the sponsored program staff determine how the collaboration should be classified. It's not always obvious from the paperwork alone whether the relationship and nature of work conducted by the entity makes it a subrecipient or a contractor. So it is important for PIs to work with sponsored program staff on the classification review and decision-making process. The relevant questions to ask are: is the work being done by an individual or an organization or business? If it's an individual, it's a contractor. An organization or business could be either vendor or subrecipient, so continue on. Is the entity contributing to the scholarly and/or scientific conduct of the project? If not, it's a contractor. Does the entity's portion of the project require use of discretion and unique expertise? Or does the entity have responsibility for programmatic decision-making? If not, it's a contractor. Does the entity provide similar goods or services that are within their normal business operations to many different purchasers? If so, it's a contractor. Does the RF project director need to verify that the entity's work was satisfactory before payment is made? If not, it's a contractor. If it is a contractor relationship, the arrangement must be made through the purchasing process and not through a subaward agreement. Subrecipients, unlike contractors and other vendors, have a lot of autonomy over their part of the work, and the RF does not direct their specific activities. But the RF is still responsible for the overall contract and for the subrecipient's activities on behalf of the prime award. So we need to be diligent about the monitoring and management steps that I will cover next. Step 2. Before a subaward is issued, and every year after that, the sponsored programs administrator must evaluate the risk level of each subrecipient, consulting with the PI as needed. If a subrecipient has an elevated risk level, steps need to be taken to manage that risk. This step starts with a risk assessment questionnaire, which the campus-sponsored programs administrator will send to the subrecipient. There are 2 versions linked in the procedure, one to use the first time a subrecipient is being selected, and a different version of the questionnaire to use annually and as needed after that. This questionnaire asks the subrecipient to certify whether there are any issues that might prevent or restrict them from working on a federal contract. For example, debarment, suspension, criminal or civil violations, or any previous federal contracts having been terminated for default. It also asks them to certify things like any export control restrictions and that they have a responsible conduct of research program in place. There are additional questions if the subrecipient is not a member of the Federal Demonstration Partnership Expanded Clearinghouse, addressing any related lobbying activities, conflict of interest management, and audit status. The final page is the questionnaire for any subrecipients who are not subject to federal audit requirements. Once the completed questionnaire is received from the subrecipient, the sponsored program staff should confirm the information provided when possible. For example, check the subrecipient's profile on the sam.gov website for any suspensions, debarments, or active exclusions. Save this profile for future monitoring. If the project involves any foreign subawards or personnel, check these in visual compliance. If the subaward involves human subjects or laboratory animals, collect relevant IRB or IACUC documentation at the initial subaward stage and then as these expire. Once the information is collected and confirmed, the sponsored programs administrator must perform a risk analysis. The sponsored programs administrator should work with the PI as needed to complete the risk analysis. Although the administrator will be able to gather and evaluate specific materials from and about the subrecipient entity, the PI will have programmatic information and context that can be relevant. For example, If the subrecipient entity has received audit findings indicating problems, the Sponsored Programs Administrator should discuss these with the PI and determine whether those problems impact the work being done by the subrecipient. A link to a risk analysis scoring rubric is available in the procedure. This rubric will calculate a weighted risk score for the subrecipient, where bigger risks are weighted more heavily. Based on the overall risk score, additional monitoring may be necessary. If this is an initial risk assessment prior to issuing the subaward, these risk mitigation requirements may need to be included among the terms of the subrecipient agreement. You can find guidance about these monitoring steps on page 2 of the rubric. A subrecipient with a medium risk score would require detailed invoicing, and you should be sure to ask for guidance as needed regarding any complex contract or compliance issues. If you don't understand something or are unsure, ask for clarification or guidance. If the subrecipient has a high risk score, more frequent and detailed financial and/or programmatic reporting would be needed. Be sure to clearly establish how this monitoring needs to take place and who needs to do it. The next 3 steps outline the ongoing management of the subrecipient. Step 3. The PI must actively monitor the programmatic and financial activities of the subrecipient and subaward to ensure that the statement of work is being satisfactorily completed and within the budget. Is the subrecipient submitting invoices for payment on schedule, showing sufficient expenditures for the work performed to date and per the approved budget? Is the subrecipient PI submitting progress reports on time, showing sufficient and timely progress? It is important for the PI to thoughtfully evaluate how things are going programmatically with the subrecipient and to communicate any issues or concerns to sponsored program staff. Step 4. At least annually, the Sponsored Programs Administrator must collect information from the subrecipient and work with the PI to re-evaluate the subrecipient's risk level. Go back to Step 2, which covers the Risk Assessment Questionnaire and the Risk Analysis Scoring Rubric. It's important for the administrator and PI to have a conversation at this point to evaluate how well the subrecipient is performing the work. Did the entity's rate agreement change? Are there any conflicts of interest the PI should be reporting? If the subrecipient indicates they have received audits that found material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or instances of material noncompliance, the Sponsored Programs Administrator must review the relevant audits and any other related information regarding audit findings and corrective action that the subrecipient has taken. The administrator will need to talk with the PI to help evaluate whether the findings impact the subrecipient work being done. If the findings are related to the RF subaward or subcontract, consider whether further actions are needed. Step 5. Take enforcement actions against any non-compliant subrecipients. If a subrecipient is failing to show progress consistent with the statement of work or is spending money inconsistently with the approved budget, the PI must reach out to both the subrecipient and the campus sponsored programs administrator to make everyone aware of these concerns. Construct a plan to address any areas of concern. If a subrecipient is non-compliant, see the enforcement measures checklist linked in the procedure for examples of enforcement steps that might be taken. These include contacting the subrecipient to discuss areas of concern, making a site visit to review documentation and observe operations and project performance, arranging for an outside audit, and reviewing the subrecipient's single audit or program-specific audit results if available. And that's it. These are the required steps. The procedure and the related documents walk through each aspect of the process in detail. It's just a matter of making sure to work through each step and to follow up about any issues requiring additional action. If you have questions about any of these steps, or about a situation involving a subrecipient, please contact your sponsored programs office. Thank you.